I've been needing to do a video like this for a long time, but here it is. If you don't know me, my name is Jordan Hexem, and I've been doing photography for around 9 years now. I've been shooting cars for around 3 years, and I basically just want to show you guys my entire process of shooting cars and how I set up cool shoots. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the video and learn something from this. So there's 5 different steps through my process of shooting cars. That is number 1, location. Number 2 is the positioning of the car and composition. Number 3 is lens selection and gear. 4 is editing and color grading. Number 5 is cleanup, which is Photoshop and cleaning up stuff in the frame. Like I said before, my number 1 is always location. One of the main reasons why I prioritize locations over anything is because before I was shooting any cars, I was shooting landscapes for like 6 years, and shooting landscapes, location is number 1. If you literally can't shoot anything if you're not at like a sick location. So it's a lot easier to shoot a beautiful car in a beautiful location rather than shooting a beautiful car in just like a parking structure, you know? Not a huge fan of that type of photography in my personal opinion. Recently, I took a trip to Miami, and it was my first time ever out there, and I'll show exactly how I found my photo locations and how I decided what cars I wanted to shoot at those locations. So here's a couple examples from Miami. One of the main photo shoots that I did out in Miami was with 3 different Porsches up in Ocean Drive. If you know Miami and know the Miami colors, there is pink and blue, so I wanted a pink and blue car at the location. Ocean Drive is one of the most like beautiful like streets in the US, honestly, in my personal opinion. The colors and everything just pop so well. So that's why I wanted to shoot those 2 cars at that iconic location. And as you can see, this photo right here, there is a lot of yellow. So on top of that, of the pink and the blue, I got another yellow car as well to match the entire scene. The yellow matches the building, and the blue also matches the sky, and then the pink just pops, and it's just like a perfect photo in my personal opinion. Another one of my personal favorite photo shoots that I did out there was with these 2 Jägermeister Porsches. One is a 935 and one is a 997. Both of these are race cars, and another thing that I like doing is just shooting cars in unique areas. So shooting race cars on the grass is a little bit different and I think it looks really cool. The orange pops really well with the green, and the colors just match perfectly, and I'm really happy with these photos. I went to a couple different locations with that shoot as well, but the ones on the grass just stood out more than everything just because of the colors. If you're new into photography, I would highly recommend learning color theory. I'm not the best at it or best at explaining it, honestly, but contrasting colors just make photos just pop a lot better, like that orange and green. Also colors like purple and green contrast really well as the classic YouTube color grade, which is teal and orange. That also always does really well. Another couple colors that I like shooting as well is red and green as well, which also is a really contrasty color combo that I really love. So now that I've talked about what I like about finding locations to match for the cars, here's exactly how I find those locations. My go-to is always Google Earth. Here's a quick understanding on how I actually find locations from Google Earth. Let's zoom in real quick. Let's say I want to shoot like a skyline view with a car in the front and the foreground. So this is downtown right here. Let's change this to 3D, and then you can find different hills in the area. Let's see, some hills over here. Let's see if there's any streets that line up with this view, and I think this might work right here. So that's usually how I just go through and find locations myself. And it takes a lot of time if you've never been to the city before and you're new to the area and you don't know where anything's at. So it took me a while to actually learn the city of Miami to find locations out there. But after like a couple days of just searching, I ended up finding a bunch of different photo locations, even stuff that people haven't shot yet, which is really cool. So I would definitely recommend just going on Street View and seeing if you can find any new stuff, because it kind of sucks shooting the same stuff that everyone else does in those locations. Step number 2 is positioning and angles. If you know all the basic angles of shooting a car, like front 3/4, back 3/4, side shot, back shots, details, headlights, tail lights, interiors, all the basic stuff. Once you get all that dialed and you know exactly all of those, then I would recommend finding ways to incorporate those angles with the location that you're at. That's how you actually turn a decent photo, a decent car photo, into something actually really solid and something that stands out. If you're shooting multiple cars, I would really recommend using references from Instagram photos. I've used references from like Alex Penfold before through different shoots, because I've done some shoots where it's like 4 cars, 5 cars trying to position at the same time, and it takes a lot of time, and you have to have everything memorized in your head before you even start shooting, or else it's just gonna be terrible. You're only gonna be able to get like 1 composition if you get lucky, honestly. So I would recommend getting everything planned beforehand so everything goes smoothly on the shoot. Now I'm going to be talking about gear a little bit, not too much, because I don't really care too much about gear or talking about gear that much. You can learn all that stuff from other different tutorials. For me, I'm just going to be talking about lens selection. I only have 2 main lenses to shoot. So there's a tighter one, which is like a normal 50, and then there's a 30, which is like a little bit wide. If you're shooting a car with like a 50mm, it's so much easier to shoot. You can shoot wide stuff, you can shoot details, interiors, like pretty much anything. With a 50, it's my personal go-to lens. Let's say you want to shoot wide. Shooting with a wide angle lens with a car is really difficult in my personal opinion, and it takes a lot of time to get used to in order to find decent angles and compositions for the car. Unless if you're shooting like an actual like wide, like a scenery or like a horizontal, then that makes sense. But if you're shooting any type of details, you really got to watch out for the distortion, and yeah, the cars can look really weird sometimes. So I would really be cautious about just warping the car. Another thing that I actually do a lot is use filters on my photo shoots. My main filter that I use right now for all of my shoots is a shimmer diffusion. What this basically does, it just diffuses the highlights and has a little like softness on the highlights. And I think it looks really cool, especially because I shoot everything on medium format film. So sometimes your photos can look a little bit too sharp and it'll look a little bit weird. So if you have something a little bit soft, let's say a Pro Mist or anything like that, then it really makes it look a little bit more dreamy and a little bit more appealing in my personal opinion. Now we're on to step 4, which is a really big one, and that is color grading. The first thing that I will always do when I'm editing a photo is to color balance the photo. The majority of the time that I shoot film, it's shooting gold, and usually it's a little bit too warm, so I usually try to color balance it with the tint and the white balance settings. And then once I do that, I usually do a little bit of tweaking with the contrast and the curves. Let's say I'm shooting a digital photo though, it's a little bit different. The first thing I do the same thing, color balance the photo, because you have to do that every single photo, and you want the car to look, let's say you're shooting a white car, you want it to look white, like white. Make sure you gotta get that like dialed in, or else the photo will just look terrible in my personal opinion. But like I said before, if I'm shooting digital raw photos usually contrast the photos a little bit too much. So what I usually do whenever I shoot digital is I'll do like an opposite S curve, and I'll push the shadows up a little bit and then put the highlights down. Not too much to where it looks awkward or just not real, I guess, but enough to where it's not as contrasty and it's a little bit more flat. On top of that, I'll play with some of the color sliders, and then I'll go to the color calibration, because sometimes, let's say the lighting isn't ideal, you're shooting something like a green tree or something is in your background. Sometimes the greens are not green. I usually use color calibration to fix that, or I'll use that with the color sliders. In my personal opinion, less is more when you're editing a photo, so don't go too crazy. If you're new to photography, be really mindful of what you are turning or what you are changing in your sliders, because when I started photography, I would tweak stuff to like 100 and it would look terrible, and I had no idea what I was doing until like a couple years through photography. And yeah, now I look back at my old photos and I start cringing because yeah, it's bad, it's bad. So make sure you color balance your photo and then don't tweak stuff too much. Make stuff look realistic. So now this is step 5, and that is the cleanup. What I mean by cleanup is I like to get every photo and put that into Photoshop and clean up every single photo. A lot of the times I'm shooting on location. The location's either really dirty, trash everywhere. You know, I live close to LA, so that happens pretty often. There's just random rocks and pebbles and distractions on the ground. I try to remove all of that just to get a better clean photo. It really does make a big difference. There's not that many people that actually do that, and I really think that my stuff stands out a little bit more than other people because of that. Usually it takes me like 10 to 15 minutes per photo to just look at everything, and anytime I would see any type of distraction in the background or foreground, I will always remove it. And it's very tedious and it takes a lot of time, but I don't shoot too often, honestly, so it's not gonna be that big of a time investment. And it's honestly really worth it, especially because I print my photos big and I really want to make sure the photos are really like perfect. All right, so those are my 5 tips. I hope you guys learned something from this video. If you guys have any more recommendations of YouTube videos that you guys wanted me to do, let me know. Drop them in the comments down below. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.